Thank you, Mrs. Does she have a name?
That must
She
be a
just
new
likes that.
feature. Usually it doesn't interrupt when I start and stop the
I know.
recording. So sorry about that.
This is the second meeting I've been to where some woman that's not that other woman, Cersei or whatever her name is. It's some other chick.
Yeah.
Siri.
I wonder.
Siri's sister is letting us know that she is watching us. So.
Sally. I think it's Sally.
And I think it's an update to Zoom or something because it's happened with me twice this week, but it's never happened before. Anyway, We're being recorded. So let's call this meeting to order at 3:02. And first up, let me go to the agenda. First up is the minutes from April the 28th. Are there any changes to the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes from the April meeting.
I second the motion.
Is there anything to add from anyone? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, and then, oh, just to double check, Elizabeth, do we have apologies from Tanya or is she joining us?
I didn't hear anything from her, so maybe she'll tune in a little bit later. But
okay, yeah. So announcements. Our next meeting is the 23rd of June. And are there announcements from other commissioners? Brian.
I will not be there probably June 23rd. I'm supposed to be out of the country, but the country I'm supposed to go to has closed borders right now. So it's uncertain if I'll be at the next meeting.
Okay. You must be going through a similar process to I am for the July meeting then. I'm looking at certain borders of a country too. Okay, so if you could let us know nearer the time, I think it is 48 hours notice if you can't make it, but I'm sure you're going to know soon. Yeah.
In case I forget to give notice right now, I'm planning on not being there.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you make a note, Elizabeth, of that? Brilliant. Thanks, Brian.
Uh-huh.
Are there any other announcements from commissioners? Jamie.
I just wanted to announce that we had two successful events. The Green Debris Drop-Off Day, we had 190 cars attend, and we were able to process 160 cubic yards of otherwise flammable material that will no longer be flammable because it won't be around. Also, the household hazardous waste event took place. It was one of the more successful events that we've had in recent past as well. That garnered 568 cars and almost, that's almost 52,000 pounds of hazardous waste.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a lot of hazardous waste. So I just wanted to report that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jamie. Are there any other announcements from commissioners? Risa.
It's not an announcement, but it's a question that I was just wondering if Jamie has heard anything from the Oregon Beverage and Recycling Cooperative when the public will be able to get the 10 cents back per bottle that they've been donating to the OBRC for some months. Do you know who we can reach out to find out what the timeline for that is?
I'm sure they have a contact, just like any other, organization would have a contact email on their website.
Yeah, they have a customer service contact on their website.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And then also during the past month, as everyone knows, I represent SOU on this commission. So one of the commissioners here asked me that I would, just as Jamie's updated on the waste events, that I would update on what's happening at SOU and as part of this announcement or to be added to the agenda. And I just thought how everyone felt about that with those that have standing representation. Does it help having that a more detailed announcements from Jamie and more detailed from myself. And then of course there would be Ashland School District as well to understand what's happening between the organizations. I'm happy to do it as part of this part of the agenda, just with a very short synopsis like Jamie does, or we can add it on as a standing item. How does everyone feel about that? Brian?
I like hearing from Jamie every month about what Recology is doing. I'd love to know just a synopsis of what the college and get a school district representative, what the school district's doing.
Okay, so maybe we add that on as a specific update, Elizabeth. Risa?
And like, there may be months, you know, a few times a year where more time is needed. And I guess it seems like it would be good if more time is needed than just, you know, 3 or 4 minutes, that then the representatives could let Elizabeth know and you know, get more time to the agenda so it doesn't throw everything off.
Okay, no, that sounds like a good idea. And I can also help share some of the resource. I work with students who write articles about sustainability at the college. We have a newsletter come out every term about sustainability and climate change. Just a couple of the projects for the purpose of this meeting. I don't want to take up too much time until it becomes a dedicated agenda item, but we've expanded our recycling center on campus. So we now have, we had 1/3 of the building. We now have the whole building, and we've painted it a nice bright blue with a yellow trim, and it's going to have green railings at the front. So you can't really miss it because it's one building that's not beige on campus. So and it's over on Whiteman Street, and we're continuing to recycle through that after we have as much reduce and reuse as possible. We're also increasing our solar arrays on campus. We recently finished the stadium storage. There was a little bit of media coverage on that. And then we've just recently got a Department of Energy grant, and the Students' Green Fund approved to fund solar energy on the barn down at SOU Farm. We're also using farm produce in the Hawk Dining to feed students. So we've got quite a circular kind of localized system going on campus, which is exciting. We're doing more around single use in different departments and different buildings. Dining's doing more in single use. Student Recreation Center, they're currently in the process of moving from disposable wipes to towels that are washable with sprays. So we're looking at what else we can do around single use and having a pledge to eliminate it from campus. We're currently updating our climate action plan, which was developed in 2010, needs to be updated, looking at the different milestones, the different actions we're taking towards carbon neutrality. And I'm working with a student who's currently looking at it to show what SOU can do to contribute to all the City of Ashland Climate Energy Action Plan actions. So where it mirrors the land use and transportation, where it mirrors the energy use, what we can do to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And then of course, in terms of adaptation, fire resilience. We're also very conscious of the drought we're currently in, and we're looking at moving our landscape to a more drought resistant landscape. And we've also just renewed our tree campus certification, as well as our bee campus certification for pollinator habitat space. That's a very short synopsis, but I'll prepare a more helpful one at the next meeting, and I can send out resources too. James?
Yeah, I have a couple. Thanks for that update. I have a couple of questions for you regarding, one is about the water conservation. I know that you get water from the Ashland Canal for irrigation, and you're going to become more, you're going to get more landscaping that's more xeriscape, I assume.
Drought resistant, some will be xeriscape, yep.
Okay, well, whatever it is, it's more water conservative. And so what about, I've oftentimes heard that SOU uses their water because they have to use it or they'll lose it. And is there, because it's kind of like they're allocated a certain amount, and if they don't use it, can you explain what really happens then?
I don't know the ins and outs. I know it's different this year in terms of when you say the Ashland Canal, do you mean the TID?
Yeah, it's our Ashland Canal is what we're really getting. It's not TID.
So we draw from the TID in terms of our.
No, it's an entirely different system where it's coming down from the mountain. TID goes into Immigrant Lake and it comes out and goes over to the east side and goes into Medford or whatever. We get our water down the Ashland Canal in a separate way. That's all. And it's called the Ashland Canal.
Okay, I need to go back and speak to my sources because I don't want to start talking about something that I'm
Okay,
understanding.
that's okay. Okay, the second question I have is, has the college considered the possibility of involving itself in the community solar program where it might install solar panels on your grounds and then share those panels with the community?
Yeah, we're in discussion on the community.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Bex.
Thanks, Risa. I'm going to follow up on the TID because that's where we get our irrigation water and from City of Ashland for our potable water. So I know that there's 3 sources, but I wasn't aware we used from the other source. So I need to go and look at that in detail.
Yeah, people
I'm looking
typically
at our
call it the
irrigation
TID.
recently,
Yeah.
And that's completely different to what is being talked about in meetings with those that work on our irrigation at SOU.
Yeah, it'd be good to know, how that plays out for SOU in terms of use of that water.
Okay, I just know that the TID in terms of irrigation is not available until middle of June to end of July because of our water conservation.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, James. Okay, were there any other announcements from commissioners? And I don't think we have any reports from members of other commissions. Okay.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I looked at the list, when we talk about being fire-wise in our community and water issues. And this is just an FYI, but it's kind of disturbing to me. There's a list of trees and plants you can't plant, and almost every single native conifer you cannot plant now in the city of Ashland. So I'm just throwing that out there, and if anybody who knows more than I do wants to make a comment, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I could maybe shed some light on that. I think that is a response to, the heightened wildfire danger, and really what it is specifically, it's within the 30 feet, the 30-foot limit of a structure. So you can, if you had a larger property, you could still plant conifers in appropriately within that distance. The reason for it is that the conifers, as we see in the hills here and wherever they are, have been going through a process of drying over many years because of repeated drought or near drought conditions. And they have a lot of incendiary fuel in them. They're the sap and the stuff that's in the bark has, a lot of volatile oils, whatever they are. And in combination with that, the water content of the wood is less than it has been in most of the time we've been living here. And the combination of the two just make the trees much, much more dangerous in a wildfire situation. Ideally, these are trees that have adapted to the fire cycle. But the problem is we've kind of enhanced the fire cycle because of the way I don't think people would want a fire to go through every 10 or 12 years through the yard and burn, create, scars on their conifers. So I think that the goal is for people to plant resilient plants that actually don't burn, that retain moisture in them, that protect, that can even protect a home from, oncoming, fire. And it's unfortunate because so many of them are native plants, but there are also a lot of, there are native shrubs and smaller ground covers that are native that we can plant. And it's just it's the problem of trying to live in the forest as humans with wooden houses.
And if I can just add to that, this is going to be a dilemma that we have to manage pretty much from here on out, is this connection between wildfire risk and water conservation, right? Because a lot of what we've told people to do, which is get rid of your lawns, put down bark mulch, all that kind of thing. All of a sudden now we're saying, get rid of that bark mulch. You can't have that there. We still don't want people planting lawns, right? But I think as a culture and as a community, we are trying to figure out the best way, the optimal way forward. And we've done a lot of infill development. And so our homes are basically little fuel pockets or big fuel pockets. And so what we have between them in terms of fencing and vegetation and all of that sort of thing is really important in a way that it wouldn't be if we had more space between our homes, if we were, spread out across the landscape in a different way. But there are a number of dilemmas that we're coming up against in terms of that. People have said, they've asked the city, why aren't you constricting water use already, given the drought declaration at the county? Well, our water situation is a little bit different. Our immediate water situation is different, but it's also that we don't want to dry our urban trees out, because of fire risk. And so there's a lot of moving parts in trying to figure out vegetation in Ashland.
Thanks, Tonya. Okay, moving on to the next. I don't think there's any testimonies from the public. Okay, and then reports and presentations. We're starting off with a short presentation from the Ashland Solar Cooperative, and this is Marnie.
Yeah, so I don't have anything formal, but basically I've been working on the website for the Ashland Solar Cooperative, which was started by Jim Hartman and a large active group. At least a year ago, I believe, is when they first started working on it. And I've just been pulled in recently to help get some of the information online so that we can start to actually implement the solar cooperative. I thought I'd share that with this group at this time. Is someone else? Sorry, I'm hearing another voice. Jim asked me to let this group know what's going on, and the cooperative was pretty close to being rolled out to the public. So it's time to start to get people more informed of what's going on. So I'm going to share a page that has the website that we've been working on. Let me just take 1 sec to get that up. And okay, there we go. And I think I can just share screen.
Cooperative Solar.
Can folks see the website? Okay, so the Ashland Solar Cooperative is aiming to develop a 200 kilowatt system, which would have kind of on average about 50 people that co-own the system. And then 5 additional co-owners that would be lower income households. So each system will have a certain percentage of it, 10% that's actually given to lower income households. And let's see if I can. Okay. So basically there will be memberships that people can buy. An average membership will cost about $7,350. There's about $2,000 tax credit from the federal government. And then a return of about 3 to 4% back over time in savings on electricity. So what the group was working on for a while was just getting the numbers to really get solidified so that people can know pretty closely exactly what they can expect as far as the amount that they need to put in and then what their savings will be over time. There's many different ways to be part of the cooperative. First, there's these memberships that people can buy. So you can live anywhere in Ashland and be a utility customer. You can buy your power from the solar collective. You can subscribe to it in a different location. So the locations are to be determined, but it allows renters, it allows lower income households, it allows all different businesses and residents all to become members of the cooperative. Currently, there are a couple host sites that have been identified, but there's still openings for more host sites. So a host site would be existing buildings that have large expanses of roofs that the owner would be willing to basically accept the solar development on their roof. And there can be some payment for that. Or they can go on the large trackers. And so those would be things like parking lots or other large expanses without existing buildings. So both of those are effective host sites, and both of those fit the economic model for the solar cooperative. And then also there's investors. So you can become an investor of the cooperative and help get the cooperative up and moving more quickly. What the Ashland Solar Cooperative is hoping to do is start with one development with about 50 different subscribers, or members, I should say. And then over time, within the next few years, actually getting up to 5 to 6 of those. It's thought that getting the solar cooperative moving forward can actually get us to our 10 by 20 goals much more quickly. So just some of the cost savings so that you can see how the numbers work for people. If you're a renter in Ashland, you could become a member. So assuming a renter uses about 500 kilowatt hours per month, then they could purchase about 1.8% of the total system that's developed. And this would save them about $7,000 over the 25-year period of a lifetime of the solar cooperative, which that's just the time that the panels are under warranty, but they should continue to produce energy even after that. So that's a 3.5% return on investment if you look at the comparison to paying regular electricity prices over that same period of time. And oops, sorry, too far. The low income, so basically each member puts some of their membership into a pot that pays for the low income households to also become part of the solar cooperative. The low income households will probably be chosen through a lottery system, and they could save up to $19,000 on average. It depends on how much they use and what the percentages they end up owning through their membership. So that's a pretty significant savings over time for a low income household. If you look at an average homeowner, they would save about $15,000 over time, and that's about a 4% return on investment. And then for businesses, sorry, it keeps going way back when I use the back button. For businesses, they could save about $42,000 over time, depending on, that's kind of an average business. So there's a significant cost savings to become a member of the solar cooperative. And, there's all sorts of arguments of why people should become members, how it empowers individuals to own the source of their own electricity. It increases local resilience because we are now creating energy at the local level rather than buying it from a company. We're keeping the proceeds here in the local community. And it just shows up on people's utility bills, the same as their current electricity bills. So let's see. There is a clause that allows people to sell their shares. So obviously when people move, so if you move from one house to another within Ashland city limits, it doesn't matter because you basically just convert your utility bill will still look the same. You'll still be getting your electricity through the solar cooperative and it'll still show up on your bill, but in a different household. If you move outside of Ashland city limits, if you pass away or if you experience another major life change, where you need to actually sell your shares, then there will be a system that allows you to do that. So different life changes, there will be an opportunity to sell your shares and bring in new investors in that way. That way people don't feel like they're tied in for the 25-year period. This is still a draft website. So these are Jim Hartman, Dave Spinney. There's been a lot of people working on this and I actually don't know exactly who, so I'm sorry to not list them at this time. And I guess that's kind of just a brief overview of the system itself. Sorry I didn't have something more formal planned, but it would be great to just have a discussion and see what kind of questions people have and actually get some feedback as well. Yeah, Brian.
Thanks, Marnie. Marnie's been working on this a lot. I've been also working on it some, and it's moving now beyond kind of the grand idea to the nuts and bolts stage where folks are involved in drafting actual contracts and the language of contracts to roll out to the public pretty soon. And folks have met with city staff. Stu's been very generous with his time and other staff members, including the billing department, to make sure the net metering works and that people with kind of complicated accounts, for instance, it might be landowners and building owners that have multiple rental properties, how that would work on their bill. And so city staff's been very encouraging of this system, and it's been a very positive experience working with staff.
Thank you for adding that. Larry, did you have a question? I think you're muted. You're muted.
So I was wondering about the zero interest financing, and that might work for a homeowner or a renter or anyone who hasn't even considered solar because of the big upfront cost.
Yeah, so that would be something for the city to figure out, and Stu might know more than if some of the money that the city has for zero interest loans could apply for people becoming part of the cooperative.
So I'm not sure. I can't really say since we don't have the final proposal from the co-op yet, but I can give you an update on the loan program when it gets to be my turn, and that may speak to some of it. Whether or not it'll work for virtual net metering, we're not sure yet. So once we have the final program, maybe we'll be able to say. Sorry, that's not a great answer, but best I can do on the moment.
Lisa?
First off, this is really exciting, you know, being able to hear how this has progressed. And a question that I have is whether or not there would be a limit per, you know, household for how much wattage one could generate, thus reducing the cost of their utility bill. Has that been discussed? Because I know that there is a limit with the intertie program that the city offers. So this, how does this intersect with that?
So right now the recommendation is that people cover 90% of their electrical use. And this is because there isn't a great way to get reimbursed for extra energy. And so the advice is to keep your investment at 90%. So that's the main limit, but it is also, they are considering marketing to businesses, which would have much higher energy use. But because the goal is to get multiple systems in place as quickly as possible, having a couple large businesses take up a significant proportion of one unit is actually a positive thing. It means that we'll just get more of these done more quickly.
Okay, I'm hearing you say 90%, but that would have to be an average because energy use fluctuates, throughout the year. So is that 90% determined on average, in a 365-day cycle?
Yeah, so it'd be the same as if you were getting your own panels on your house. You want to look at your yearly average, and then the city gives you credits when you produce more than you use.
Yeah.
And then you get those roll over to the next month. And then luckily, the times of year that you produce more is also the times when lots of people are using air conditioning and there's more demand as well. So, so it's basically calculated, and then the net metering is done so that it is the same as if you had the panels on your own house. It's just that they're not on your house, they're somewhere else.
So, but my question is whether or not it's the same number. The limit for solar on one household, if one has maxed what is allowed on a household, can that household participate in the cooperative solar program?
That's a good question. I don't see why not, but I'm also not the one to answer that question. So I can pass that along to Jim unless Brian knows the answer, or unless Stu has some more insight on that.
Well, I think Rissa, your concerns are shared by Jim Hartman and the people drafting the contracts in terms of, how you roll your balance over month to month with varying usage and varying solar production from month to month, and even what would normally be high production months that might be impaired by smoke, for instance. And also looking at, say, if you're a net overproducer, can you give away your usage to other people? So those issues are being addressed that as far as I'm aware, in the contract, and I've been in those meetings.
Great. And I can reach out to Jim, but thank you. That it's very exciting. Good job, y'all.
One thing that was considered, and that I believe is still the case, is that if there is surplus energy produced, it'll get donated into the low income part.
Okay, we'll just take one more question from James and then we'll move on because of the packed agenda. Thanks, James.
Yeah, nice job on this. I like the website, Marnie. It's looking good.
Thanks.
You have nice talent there. The question I have is for tax credits. Whoever puts their panels on their building gets the tax credit. Is that tax credit then distributed across to other people who are investing in this?
I think so. Again, I think so. I believe that the tax credit then, because the tax credit does go to the individual, and I'm just not sure the mechanism to get it there. So sorry to not.
Well, it should, if you have that information, it might be useful on the website to describe that when someone invests, whatever the case may be, if it's an investment that they get all the credit for, that's one thing. If it's an investment that tax credit gets distributed out to everybody else, that would be good to know as well.
I will say that these are not, these questions are being considered, and there are folks working on this, for instance, from the Bonneville Power Foundation that have dealt with this and other solar co-ops in Oregon. So it's not the first time these issues have been brought up. So there are people involved with the Ashland Solar Co-op that have experience with these types of issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's any other questions, I'm sure we can follow them up with Marnie or Brian or anyone else involved in this. We're going to have to move on. Lisa, do you have a quick question?
Yeah, just when it's appropriate, let's invite Jim Hartman. When the timing is just right, I just would request that Jim Hartman come to a future meeting. That's all. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Teresa. Okay, and we'll go on to the council update and Tonya.
Thank you, Bex. I don't think we have very much in the way of an update at this point, other than the one place of intersection is that the council has approved the development of the new Social Equity and Racial Justice Commission. And at our next meeting, I believe we are looking to confirm Mayor Aiken's initial slate of commissioners and provide some guidance for their initial work. But this is one of the commissions, like the climate commissions, where I think that there's great potential for intersecting across the commissions. And one of the things that we are going to be talking about is essentially how to support the commission in developing its work plan. And so there might be a good reason for this commission and the Climate Policy Commission, and maybe even the Wildfire Safety Commission, to reach out, as I imagine the Housing and Human Services Commission will, to just say hello and find out where there might be some areas of intersection as they work to look at what some of council's initial focus points are, as well as their process for developing their work plan. So all of that will be on we're expecting that to be on the agenda for this upcoming 1st of June meeting. And then I think they still have to wait a couple more weeks before they can meet because of the ordinance law rules, but they could easily be meeting by the end of June for their first meeting. So you might just think about how you might want to sort of welcome them into the world of commissionhood and share these intersections between the work of climate and the work that they're doing.
That's great. Thanks, Tonya. And if they're getting guidance on a work plan, is that something that's in the pipeline for our commission in terms of being steered in a certain direction and what we could focus on? And should we look at what's in that work plan to see what we can contribute to?
So what we've got, Councillor Duquesne and I have put forward an initial set of anchor sort of focus points that we would like this new commission to consider. And then we've indicated, and this all has to be accepted by the full council, of course, before it becomes real, but we've also asked them to come back within 6 months and let us know what they sort of think of these initial anchor points, some of which might have been able to be done by then. And what would they like to see for their next, for essentially their first annual work plan.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is linked to the other commission conversation that Councillor Seffinger and I are working on together, which is to create more of that sort of work planning structure and accountability structure for the commissions and the council. Like there, that whole system needs more accountability in it, in terms of the council really being more intimately aware of what the commissions are working on, so that when they show up with a request or a policy proposal or something, the council has the context and knows it's coming. And so that second conversation will come sometime this summer after this initial conversation around the Social Equity and Racial Justice Commission. And it will include a variety of sort of reforms of the commission system that are designed to make it easier for our community members to serve, and a little bit more straightforward. And that work plan question is going to be part of that. So getting commissions on a pattern of coming back before council and us really having a discussion with those commissions, as opposed to kind of the report back
Mhm.
and not a whole lot of discussion, and then we wait and see them again in a year. And so that, of course, again, will be another proposal that won't be put in place until the council approves it, but that's kind of where the conversation is.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Tanya. My experience as chair for a year, I would welcome that, having that back forth conversation and a steer so we can support the council and our city staff a lot more effectively. That would be good.
And if I can just follow up behind that, Councillor Seffinger and I, our work has been kind of put to the side. We've had to focus on some other things more recently, but we will distribute out to all of the commission chairs our proposal that we're looking to put in front of the council before we do that, so that we can get any feedback, make sure that we hit the right notes, and we're putting things in place that will actually be useful for commissions and commission members.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions, Brian?
Tanya, I'm wondering, can you give us a sense of where climate is in the list of importance of council and your assessment of the mayor? Like, are we on the front burner cooking, the low burner simmering in the refrigerator, or not even in the house?
Deep freeze.
Deep freeze?
I think it would be difficult at the moment to characterize almost any issue as the whole, kind of where is the whole council. I would say that there is strong support for climate, but there are other issues that are taking the more urgent stage. You know, we do know that that Stu will be coming forward with a major project that is going to need council approval here pretty soon. And I think that I think that we will we'll see quite a bit of support for that. So I think the support is there, but there are a lot of other issues, especially around the budget process, that we are not quite finished with, that have been really taking center stage and taking the sort of sucking the energy out of the room, as it were, in terms of issues around climate. So we've known for a while that we had to get out past the budget process in order to be able to focus on some of those longer term pieces. But there's a lot happening right now at the city. And so part of it is weaving climate into any of the decisions that are coming in front of us as they come. And we do that with any comprehensive planning element updates, and with capital improvement projects and all that sort of thing. So you'll see that there. But then the other piece is these larger initiatives, like what we're looking at with this fund. And those, when different commissions are ready for those, I think we can certainly get it on the agenda if there's something that needs council action. I don't know if that helps, Brian.
Thanks.
There's a lot of moving parts.
It gives me a sense that we're not on the front burner.
Simmering. We're simmering, Brian.
I'd say no to the refrigerator. Yes to the simmer. And there may be points where it comes to the front. Like I say, with a major initiative like the loan fund, that will push to the front of the line. But there is jockeying for position right now between a variety of different issues that are up in front of the community.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like your question, Brian, because ultimately, if it's not seen as a separate issue, it would be part of every other issue coming up, whether it's a budget issue, whether it's a transport issue, whether it's a water issue. Climate change is something that just cuts across all of them. And that's ultimately what we need to try and achieve in terms of outreach and with education and awareness with the CPC, is show how it plays its part in building a better future for Ashland as part of it, and isn't this separate issue that should be jockeying up against anything. Just like social justice and equity, it is right in the heart of every issue. It's a strategic issue. So I think we still have work to do. Maybe we're in between the fridge and the simmer, Brian.
Well, if I can also just add on.
Yeah, we don't want to be jockeying. We want to be in there, all of them. Yeah. It's
kind of a strange situation, because one of the biggest issues that we've spent a lot of time on that hasn't typically been spent on is the Social Equity and Racial Justice Commission and the resolution, right? So the resolution we passed last summer and the continuing work that the council is doing, that's taking up council time, and I would say appropriately so, right? And now that we've got the commission started, you know, that may open up some space, you know, out of around side all of the standard infrastructure, public safety kind of stuff that the city has to do. So I think we can see greater opportunity coming in the next 6 months. I hope, you know, as long as we don't have other major issues kind of crash in. But at whatever point any of these, the two climate commissions, you know, feels like it's got something that it really wants to put in front of the commission, you know, that's or the council, that's a good time to kind of let me know, and I can see where we can get it put in.
Okay, thank you. And Stu, staff update.
Okay, sounds great. So first thing, tomorrow we're going to have a webinar for home energy updates. We would love for you all to be there and or send your friends to participate. Bridget's done a number of these now, and they've been going really well. So tomorrow's the next one. If it's on the city calendar, if you want the link, but you have to, it's not on the homepage. You have to click see all events, and then you can find it that way. See, we've also got an Induction Cooktop incentive in the works. It should be live any day now. That should be pretty exciting. Of course, we'll welcome your help in spreading the word about that once it arrives. In particular, there's going to be a commercial version of the incentive that's a little bit more. So if there's a commercial electric user out there that you think might enjoy an Induction Cooktop, we would certainly love for you to advocate for their participation. On that note, this is an outreach question. For the Induction incentive, we thought it might be an interesting idea to get some portable Induction cook plates and donate them to the Library of Things for people to try out. We have gone ahead and procured a few cook plates, and we got some feedback from at least one commissioner who said those portable ones are not good. They're not going to give people a suitable experience trying it out. So what I'm looking for is 3 of you souls to volunteer to take one of these cook plates home and try it out and see whether you think it's educational or whether you think it's a waste of time. You can email me after the fact, but look, I see Brian, Marnie, and Larry. Great. So I will write your names down and we'll be in touch. Bridget has them. And I would love to get your feedback on it. And then if we decide we don't like them, we have a beneficial place to send them. But if we do like them, then we'll happily hand them over to the Library of Things and or do some direct outreach with them first, especially to restaurants. So that's exciting. Let's see, the new chargers at the Grove Police Station. If you could mute yourselves, that would be excelente. New chargers at the Grove and the police department are online, so you can charge up there if you drive an EV. I've been dealing with, let's see, so Marnie and I got together, we chatted about chargers and Risa as well, and I've been working with the Parks Department on identifying some places for parks to install EV chargers, I think for the public. So that's in process. It may take a while. EV incentive is doing great. I fully expect to use up all of our dedicated funds by November when the program is set to run until. The e-bike program is also doing really well. We're making some changes to it though, starting within a week or two, which is we're going to include class 2 bikes as part of the program now. It's been going pretty well, and we recognize that there's a lot of cyclists out there who need to have a class 2 bike for hauling their kid or something like this. So we're going to expand the program and see how that goes. Always evaluating, how it's working and make changes as we need to. And then let's see, the main thing I've been working on recently, which will be of interest, is this revised home energy loan program. I lobbied the USDA for a loan last year and was invited to formally apply. So I've been putting together this application. It's been taking up most of my time. And the idea is that we'll be able to re-lend funds to utility ratepayers. The cost to the city is 0% interest. We will likely have an administrative interest fee attached to it so that the program can self-sustain. More details to come on that. And since we're behind, I'm just going to call that good. If there's one or two questions and the chair says it's okay, I'm happy to field that. Okay, 2 questions. Keep them short, please. James Bryan.
Yeah, the question I have is, well, Road Food Unites is going to be installing a new kitchen in a building here in town.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if there's something that the city offers to commercial installers, then it includes induction stovetop rebates included in your process, or even just advice on them.
Well, I'm not sure I'm the one to give advice, but we do have some handy resources, and we will have this incentive program right quick. So I think that we should have those project managers contact me. That would be good, and we can talk about the options.
Thank you.
Yep, great idea. Brian?
Stu, when the time comes for you to present the loan program to council, can you let us know either how as a commission or individually we can help?
I will happily do that. I'm going to try to keep everybody in the loop once I have a sort of finalish document. I will say, though, that we're on a really tight timeline, so I'm not going to have the chance to sort of sit with it for as long as I would like. And we may even not make the deadline at this point, but there's always extensions and things we can ask for. But my hope is that once I have something final, we'll send it out. What we really need to do is get the final program design and get council's endorsement of it so that we can finalize the application. Because if we don't get council's approval, we don't get the loan. So as the effective managers of the electric utility, council's the one that gets the decision about that.
And do you think it would be beneficial if the 2 climate councils weighed in on it, or 2 climate commissions weighed in on it when council's considering your request?
Yeah, I would think so. There will be plenty of opportunity to comment on it when it finally goes before council. I think we could have other speakers present as well, or at least be present. Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Stu.
Oh, one last thing I should say real quick. Larry Jardina, who you all know for our solar program, is going to be retiring. He's actually with us for a little while longer, but won't be in the office. So as of Friday, I will be your effective point of contact for anything solar.
Are they, knowing how much I correspond with Harry around lighting incentives and solar, have they got plans to replace them, Stu?
That's a great question.
Okay. But you don't have an answer for.
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can probably shed a quick light on that, and that is just that right now at the city, anytime there's a vacancy, there's an assessment of the job before it's reposted, right? To make sure that it's still necessary, and it's just been looked at from a budget lens. So I believe at this point, that's the standard process for jobs that become vacant right now at the city.
Yeah, and the good news for Conservation Division is that the majority of us are funded from outside of the general fund. So in theory, yeah, but in practicality, we shall see.
Yeah, there is definitely that, which helps in terms of maintaining the positions. It's good that they're not in the general fund, or at least for the most part, they're not.
Okay, that's good news. Okay, let's move on to sneak preview. Has everyone? So first is Risa, you submitted your recycling waste and more. Did you submit that last week?
Yes,
And then the one we have today to approve is called Adapt Your Home to Climate Change.
Marnie and Larry wrote it.
Has everyone had a chance to read it? Yes, Brian. Oh, you're on mute.
I read it and I liked it, and I just had one quick language suggestion that was I think a grammatical error.
Okay.
If Marnie or Larry could take note, under the renew paragraph at the bottom in line 6, I think it goes, but for renters or without appropriate roofs for solar installation. I think it should say, but for renters or those persons or those without appropriate roofs.
Okay, thank you.
I read it. I liked it. It was very similar to the one in the month previous that Bridget and I drafted, but then I also felt that it expanded on the 4 sections. So I was just thinking for the future Adapt Your Home ones that we take one of the sections and expand it more. It's like we've done a little step by step. So we had the overarching one that Bridget and I did, which had the 4 sections. Then we've got the one that you did, which expands on the 4 sections. And then I think for the next ones, we just take one section. So we don't get too repetitive. We just take one section and expand more on that to help promote specific incentives or specific things that the city of Ashland is doing. But other than that, I really liked it. So my comment's more about what we're doing as a series, if you see what I mean. Larry, you're on mute.
Yeah, I had been concerned because we kind of got delayed in our article, and I was concerned about the repetition issue. But in the process of doing it and in the process of interacting with people in the community, I think repetition is helpful. It's because we're really trying to change people's focus and habits and ways of thinking about, how they can make their lives, correspond better with the issues that we've got. So I think that all works out pretty well. The one thing that maybe Stu could shed light on, I'm concerned about in our article and any articles where we have links to web pages. It seems to me the best thing is when we link to a page, which I think we tried to do in ours, a page that has all the other links on it, so that somebody goes there and then can explore and find the answers to all their questions. But I think it's vitally important that Stu, you and whatever social media person you have working with you, that we be sure and always have pages that that collect these links in a really clear and useful way, so that people are focusing on water or on fire resiliency or whatever it is. There's a lot of time there's overlap between the web pages that might be helpful. There might be a page that's really helpful for someone trying to conserve water, and it might be the same page that somebody who's trying to make their home more fire resilient. And to just be sure that on the city's conservation web pages, there's places that we can use to link to. They don't even have to show up when somebody normally goes there, but something we can use in our communication that will be definitive. Because in the process of writing, I found that a number of older links were no longer good, or they went somewhere else. But if we could just have like 2 or 3 pages that kind of contained all the good links, and that those were maintained and updated, would be great.
Yeah, so every page on the old website will eventually disappear, and hopefully not too far from now. So I suggest using the city website /climate for everything. That kind of dumps you into the center of the climate nexus. And at this point in time, all the city programs are pretty well consolidated, one click away from there. So it's not perfect, but I would suggest that. We also have usually a hot link for every program area. So like /EV incentive. And the way the new website works, it takes you to sort of like a group of programs rather than just the one, but usually they're organized by topic. So in this case, you would get public charging and things like that. So yeah, if you have to pick one, I would say /climate, because that will be very durable. And as we move forward with the older web pages becoming new, they should be accessible there.
Great.
And James?
I really like what you wrote. It's really clear to me. I think, I mean, for me, and maybe this is true for other people, because we're all busy and we're reading a lot of material all the time, I really like the bolding of each of those sections, you know, that kind of stands out that way. It might be nice also, like under prepare, if you just put in italics or bold italics or something like that, or underline, free wildfire safety assessment. Boom, it stands out that that's what you're really getting to, and then that allows people to focus in on that and pay attention to it. And so the same thing with number 2. Put together a disaster supply kit, or number 3. So you get the point. So in each paragraph, especially the rethink and switch and renew paragraphs, there's a lot of, it's fairly dense because it's not multiple paragraphs. If you could underline or highlight or something, the key elements in each of those, I think it would be helpful to get the word across.
Thanks, James. And Risa?
Yes, I had read through it, and I actually sent an email to Marnie and Larry. I was trying to save time with the meeting, and I didn't know if you all had gotten my input, because I don't need to go through it.
I got your input, and I will put all your edits in there. And thank you, James. Those were really helpful. I'll go through and find some of the certain words to highlight to get people's attention. And I hope
somebody's out front, and I have to leave for a minute, but I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
I didn't know they were going to show up.
Okay, and then so we've got a couple of articles in the pipeline. Risa, you and I are up next.
We are, what is it?
Rethink your consumption.
Okay.
We can do that.
Thank you for the reminder. It was not on my radar.
And then September, Risa and Bridget are covering, well, the month it's published. In July, Risa and Bridget are covering electrification. Is there anything that was going to be on the steps, I think, that Risa went through for electrification? But given that Risa is doing the next 2, maybe we need to split up so we can help the workload on Risa here. Are there any ideas in terms of also the 4 sections when you were writing it, Larry and Marnie? Did you like Risa and I can do the rethink your consumption next, but then maybe we could do the prepare or the switch or the renew and expand on that section?
Yeah, was that a question? Sorry.
Well, just as an idea, as one of the next articles in the pipeline, like have another one of those expanded. Brian, you were going to say something?
Well, last month we talked about trying to, because of the criticalness of this summer, trying to get a water article in. And I mean,
I would welcome that.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen on Nextdoor the blog or people say, how come the city hasn't sent something out about water or doing restrictions yet? So I just want, I'm just trying to think of the timing of when we should do it.
That to me would be next up. Larry?
Yeah, I have a suggestion on that. I think we're really too late to get something in print that would be timely for our sort of mini water crisis. I think what would be better would be maybe we could develop a little seminar or, Zoom in program that we could offer to the community
There was one,
those
sorry,
questions.
Larry, last night, SOCAN hosted exactly that.
Right,
and
no,
Julie
yeah.
Smitherman led it, so I'm just saying, that just
Yeah, that's the
happened.
second one that there had been one previously that Julie hosted too, and they were very good. And she really can answer all the questions, but I think we could do one where just to help people, I think the people who I didn't attend last night's, but I went to the previous one with Julie, and it was very, very good. But the people who tend to go to those are the people who are already very involved in the water issues and with some other people. But I'm thinking about something where we might, publicize it more wide, use print to publicize an online event where people could ask their questions. I don't know.
I would just say there's quite a series coming out through SOCAN and Ashland Climate Network, and then a series coming out through City of Ashland and Bridget with the 4 parts of Adapt Your Home. So I would try and piggyback on one of these to keep that kind of contact network up, to keep like the main sources of information up. That would be my initial thought. Stu, you were going to say something?
Yeah, so Bridget and I put together a webinar back in April that was about Ashland water usage, and that's recorded and I believe is on the city's YouTube channel, and it's probably also posted on our Climate Action Facebook page. So it's not the same as a live event, but if you want something to pass around, Julie did that one as well. So she's the local superstar, of course. And I think we could get you that link if it would be helpful.
And Risa?
I think if Brian wants to write an article and include those 2 webinars, and just to acknowledge we're right in the, to me, I think that it is appropriate. In an ideal world, we would have already had that article, but we don't. So I still think that if Brian's willing to do it, and I think he was going to reach out to Julie, I think it would be beneficial.
What about say with the ones that are on the schedule here for August and September, could you save enough words to have a paragraph about Ashland? And certainly, even though it would be off subject, just say, as you all know, Ashland's in a critical drought and water crisis, and here are some resources we would encourage you to look at, rather than going into the explicitness of, how to water your garden and that type of thing.
I go to one other step and actually move the August and September ones down and just focus on water, and that would come out in August then. I think we'd be right in the middle of it. I think it would be reminding them there's sources out there. The city had information out there. We can repost it on the Facebook page in the meantime.
I'm just thinking, I'm not sure I can do that by June 14th just because of my schedule, but I could try.
Okay, yeah, that's a good addition. So we could leave a paragraph at the end of mine and Risa's then, Brian, and you add in those sources. We could do that. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, just something explaining what our water situation is and where you can check it out, not like where Ashland gets its water from. And
No. It would be like referring to the 2 webinars that have occurred, and any other pertinent links that would give people more info.
Yeah.
So I'll look at that and I'll distill the most critical things out of Julie's presentation and put it into a meaningful paragraph that you guys can use.
And then email it to Risa and I. That would be brilliant, Brian. Thank you. Okay.
So just to clarify or to recap, so Brian, are you not wanting to write an article that would come out in August?
No, he's going to do a paragraph that's going to come out in our article.
Correct. And so there won't be a full-on sneak preview article for August.
No, but it will be ours with a paragraph on water at the end.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
I can do a paragraph with highlights. I can't do a full article by June 14th, I don't think.
Perfect.
Being realistic.
That's brilliant, Brian. Let's do that because we're going to cover rethink your consumption and we're going to say, and another important issue, and then we're going to say water.
Yeah. And do you have a sense of like how many words? I mean, I don't know on the sneak preview, when you think of how many words a full article is, can you give me a guidance? Like
It's between 600 and 700,
okay, so you
I
want me to,
believe.
you want me to shoot for 70-ish or,
Shoot for 100 to 150, Brian.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then email to Rita and I. That would be amazing. Yeah. We're going to have to move on. We are way behind on the agenda. Unless you have a critical question that affects the schedule of our articles, we're moving on.
Did we get a motion on the article to approve?
I was just going to motion that we approve the article with the edits by Risa, Brian, and James.
I second.
And all those in favor? Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on. We had the update on different channels for articles and future outreach, which has become a standing item, but I think that's become quite a natural thing that this group does in terms of outreach. Are there any updates on this area? Okay, and then the SEEP project update from the ones we started last year. Are there any updates on responsible consumption and single use? And that's Jamie, Risa, and me. The only update I have is that Bridget has some of the information we provided to her on the City of Ashland website, but I still think that we've got material there that could go out in different forms as well.
We could use it for part of our article
That's
as
why I
well.
was thinking, yeah, that would be really useful. Okay. And any other updates on our project on responsible consumption and single use? Okay, then climate resilience.
I think the only update we have is just we've all been putting some energy into the solar cooperative, and just see it as a really good way to have a more resilient energy grid and especially serve some low-income customers. So that's what we've been working on.
Okay, thanks, Mani. And woody use and conservation, Larry.
I think I'll just say what I was going to say in the previous discussion. And I was just starting to write a note to one of you about this. I'm just curious, it's been a long time since we've had curtailment. And it's only happened once, I believe, in terms of water. And I'm just wondering, in case we don't know, it's going to depend on our climate the next 3 months, whether we have, and various possible emergencies. But if we have curtailment again, I'm concerned because we no longer have Julie under the employ of the City of Ashland on a regular basis. Whether anyone's home with, I know there is somebody who's been assigned the water conservation job, sort of, but I know if Julie were here, there'd be a whole campaign that would already be planned in case of curtailment that would include putting up signs on the entrance and exits to town. There would be a publicity campaign. There'd be things coming in the utility bills. And I'm just wondering if maybe Tanya, if you know, if there's somebody in Public Works who actually is preparing for a possible eventuality, because part of it is prepare is really important. And if we wait till, the end of June or middle of July and then realize, oh gosh, we're likely going to be in a curtailment situation looking forward at an extended weather forecast, it would be a shame to not be totally prepared to address all the people and visitors to Ashland about what we need to do.
So quickly, Julie is still working with the city. She's working on a contract basis, but we do still have access to her. And that last curtailment was during the Alameda fire last year. So all of the signs and that whole process of getting the word out is still fresh. I would be a little bit more concerned if it was 5 or 10 years ago. We are not likely to need to do curtailment unless we have another emergency fire situation that somehow interrupts the tap. The council had a really good presentation from Public Works that gave us the strategy for how we're managing our way through. Our Reeder Reservoir is 100% as of May, as of actually the last council meeting. That day we hit 100% completely filled the reservoir. So the way that we've structured water management for this summer is actually to go pretty much straight to the tap system and bypass our secondary source, and to actually draw on it much more heavily than we have typically done in the past, as a way to also prove it up in terms of our irrigation rights or our water rights. So there is a plan in place. And I'm not worried about Public Works being able to put that campaign out if they need to, but I do think that there's a lot of confusion in the community about why we're not doing it already. And so I think I'm thinking as a counselor, how do I help get the word out? That the city's not flat-footed on this, not at all. But we're not in the same kind of situation that Klamath Falls is in. And we haven't done a good job of communicating why that is.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to people really not understanding how our water supply system works. I mean, Reeder Reservoir is going to be full for a while now, and then suddenly it's going to start coming down. And that is the normal cycle. And also it is a change this year using more of the tap. And that's sort of a complex equation to explain to people. I think the important thing is to explain to them that, what the expectation is going forward, probably similar. I didn't see that presentation for the council, but I have a feeling that a simple version of that, if that could be available and somehow shared online, might be very, very helpful to direct people if they have a question about why aren't we conserving more now? Because the truth is, right now, for me personally, I'm like irrigating heavily around my house and in my yard because I know that water is available. The water I'm using can't be saved at this point. I mean, I'm obviously not wasting water, but I'm trying to give my, shrubs and trees, a good head start so that later in the summer when they start shutting down a little bit and the lawn, doesn't need water and all that, there'll be healthy roots and there'll be good water reserves in the plants. And I think mostly people don't understand that very well. And it's something that over the long term, we need to explain.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay, thanks, Larry. I'm just gonna ask everyone for the remainder of the agenda items for everyone to be conscious of time in terms of what we need to communicate, liaise with the rest of the group. We're probably going to have to rush or drop a couple of agenda items. We have moved on a little bit, but we do still have quite a bit to cover. So at the last meeting, I announced I'd been chair for a year, and I was going to stay on the commission as representative for SOU. I was looking to stand down as chair, and then for the last month for everyone to have a think about nomination for the new chair. I don't know the actual process, Elizabeth, so you might have to guide me through this. I have someone I would like to nominate for chair and for vice chair. Do we all put our nominations forward and then vote, or do we see who's interested in taking the position? How does it work?
I usually ask for either nominations or volunteers. There can be a little discussion, and then if there's consensus or one person really in favor, then someone can make a motion, we'll make it official. Okay, so I'll start with, so I have a nomination for chair and vice chair. Does anyone else have a nomination for chair and vice chair? Does anyone want to volunteer for chair or vice chair? Okay, now I feel out there and alone.
Nominate.
So I was going to nominate Marnie as chair and Brian as vice chair. I don't know how this is.
Do we do it separately or can we do it in a package?
I don't know
Do-
the process.
You can do it in a package, that's fine, yeah.
Then I'll second that emotion.
Should we check if they've got any objections?
No, don't check.
I do not object.
Any objections, Brian?
No, I'm willing.
Okay, this is good. This has gone well so far then. Okay,
Discussion?
any discussion?
The only thing I have to say is I think, Bex, you've done a really good job, and we shouldn't lose the you've sort of worked toward having a more cogent organization of the meetings, and you even brought up things at today's meeting at the beginning for the reports, whether we should do them, separately or together at the beginning, things like that. It would be good if we can continue refining how the meeting is conducted, even with a change in leadership. And
Thanks.
I'm saying, and I'm sure that Marnie and and Brian are would be happy to do that, but I think it's something we should keep in mind that it's not a political change, it's a process change.
Absolutely. Thanks, Larry. And we'll all continue to work together and support Marnie and Brian. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
But for you, there's one condition of you leaving the chair is you have to get the school district replacement.
Yes.
Okay.
How about another commissioner?
School, yeah. One or the other.
We are short too.
We still need to cover that. Okay, so what do we do to make this official, Elizabeth? We have the nomination, the second, and then do we all vote? Okay, so we take a vote for all those in favor? Brilliant. That's great.
Well, thank you. I think. Not sure if I should say thank you.
Thank
but,
you.
I'll definitely want to coordinate with both you, Bex, and Risa, and just, keep a smooth transition and keep refining how we do things. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Keep working as a team. Yep, that would be good.
Thanks, y'all.
Bex, thanks for your leadership. You steered through the hard times of COVID.
Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. And yeah, looking forward to continue to be part of it.
Speaking of which, do we have a date when we can have in-person meetings yet? Has the city made a decision?
No, last I heard we're aiming for low risk to open up completely, but I think it might just happen in July regardless. So I don't know anything for sure though.
Okay, thank you. And then next is the review of the urban land use and transportation draft. This was sent through from Gary at the CPC, and we were asked to look at it, to read it, and then comments to come back. And we can just have an initial discussion, but comments are to go back in terms of any of the policies within it, but then also how to think about the impact and considerations around outreach, particularly given our role. So has everyone had the chance to read it? Are there any questions? And then I think we provide feedback in writing on this detailed report, particularly around discussion for us around outreach, like what is our role here on outreach as this is taken forward?
I have a question.
Yes, James.
Tonya, when you were talking about, where the council is at and priorities and all that, in looking at these, at this list, are you thinking that maybe this is a 10-year process, a 5-year process, 2-year process? What do you think in terms of getting these policies out and going?
You're muted.
I'm not sure at this point that I would know. I think we have to have a couple of more conversations a little bit later this summer. So one of the things that is happening is that in the budget that's coming to council is basically we've bought ourselves about a year to make some major decisions about how we handle a sort of a structural problem that we have with the city's budget. And that is likely to involve some programmatic decisions and strategic planning focus. My hope, of course, is that climate's right at the top of that list. And if it is, then I would bank towards the shorter side of that. If it's not, then it would go towards the longer side. But we're sitting outside of a strategic planning process right now. We don't really have a strategic vision in front of the city at the moment to guide that decision. And my answer to you.
Okay, I'm just curious how all that policy stuff, really plays out in reality when the rubber hits the road, or whatever you might want to call it these days. Thank you.
Yeah.
Brian?
I'm just wondering, so this is I found to be a very, very long document that was very hard to read in one sitting. And the goals, so these goals and policies, I think were just cut and pasted and lifted from the SEEP. And then there was a lot of comment for pages and pages at the bottom. And I'm not sure what the ask is. Is it for us to take this apart? Because I mean, I've got a ton of comments and questions that I've highlighted in red that we don't begin to have enough time in this meeting to go over just what I want to talk about. So is the Climate and Policy Commission asking for a formal report from us, or our suggestions on it, or what's the ask of us regarding this document?
Feedback from commissioners here, from what I understand. It's been sent to us to look at, to review, to look at the policy, what's written about the policy in terms of achieving the goals, and then also to think about the impact on outreach. I would be happy for that context. I've got the original email from Gary, and I can forward that to the group after this meeting. But it's asking us as individuals, we all represent climate change in Ashland. We're all representatives on this commission. So it's looking at us as commissioners that represent this commission to help shape this document and how it can be taken forward.
So is my job as a commissioner on this commission to review this and send my individual comments and questions to Gary and the CPC, or to meet with other commissioners of this commission where we have a joint statement from this commission going back to Gary and the CPC?
Okay, good question, Brian. And as you spoke, I would prefer, and I think the way we operate is the latter there. And maybe we need a small group of us to come together and pull that together for any comments that have come together.
I'm thinking we almost need a formal subcommittee that might even work with staff on what's realistic and possible.
And are you saying that the CPC, the people, our colleagues involved in this from the CPC would be part of that, or are you saying the formal subcommittee?
Well, I don't know. I mean, is CPC asking to do something jointly with us, or are they asking us to, as a separate commission, give them feedback?
I think that at this stage, they're reaching out and asking us as a separate commission to give them feedback. I think it is up to us to shape and work out how we support it going forward. Mani?
I was just thinking that if we submit written feedback to a small subset of our group and then compile all of ours together and then vote on that, would that get us to where we need to go for comments?
I think that would get us to the initial stage. Absolutely. And that's where I'm probably in the space of thinking. I also think we have to bear in mind the extension of Brian's question, which, where is this taking us? And I think that is exactly a really interesting point, because it looks at our role, doesn't it? In terms of one, working with CPC, two, the outreach and impact on the outreach role here. So I think, yeah, in terms of steps, what you're suggesting, I totally agree with. I think we need to do that. I think we need to have the collated comments going back. Yeah.
Would you suggest then, as a first step, everybody read this, make their own comments, and then maybe as a second step, either have a small subgroup so we don't have to do state laws, or have a formal subcommittee, which would involve state laws that would then review and summarize those collated comments to send back to the CPC?
I would say exactly that and call it a little task and finish group to avoid, yeah, just a little project group that collates the comments. So if everyone feeds them into a smaller group, that group collates the comments and then we can feed them back from CPC. And I would be absolutely happy to be part of that group. I've been the initial liaison with Gary. And then we could collate the comments and feed them back. It sounds like you already have quite detailed comments. Are you volunteering, Brian, to be part of that? Or
Yeah, I'd be happy to be that. And I'm just wondering how many can we have without invoking the subcommittee state
I
law?
think we have less than 5, but I think in terms of actually drafting it and working on it, we're probably optimum, I always think, is around 3.
Well, I'd be happy to do it.
Okay, and James?
I have a fundamental question about this. You know, there's a lot of stuff here, as Brian said, and we have within our scope of operation, ours is, you know, clearly defined as providing education and support that way. I can make all kinds of comments on this thing that are my personal thoughts about some of the policy or whatever, but it seems to me the best way that we as a commission could really provide input to them, number one is, you know, is it readable? Is it understandable? Whatever, but how could we enter into any of these points with ideas on how to bring forward this information to the public in a way that's a campaign that gets rolled out? And it's a bigger strategic question, I think, of how do we actually help them move this big thing forward.
Yep, I absolutely agree. But we have also been asked, so I went back and I asked that for clarification when it was first sent to us, what exactly you're looking for from the Conservation and Climate Outreach Commission, and as well as the bigger strategic question around outreach and the impact that this would have on outreach. It was also for our thoughts around policy. So I think we're being asked to look at this with our own experience in mind, as well as that bigger strategic question, James. And I'm happy to forward that email for context to everyone, because that will help kind of cement what we're trying to do here. I think we've been asked for help. We've been asked for thoughts from our outreach perspective, from our climate change perspective, from our council supports perspective, to have a look at this. What do we think? And I think, yeah, that's what we do.
Dax, I might just suggest 4 folks, if that's okay, regarding the quorum, just because it's the summer coming up and people are really chewing at the bit to travel this year. And I think people might be taking a lot of vacation this summer.
Okay. So we have two.
I would suggest that you folks try to get some initial feedback together by your next meeting. You know, CPC is hoping to offer some sort of revised official SEEP implementation plan later this fall. So I would encourage expediency to the extent that you can handle it.
Okay.
The Transportation Commission has also been asked to provide feedback, I believe. So.
Yep.
And I would just add that the this conversation that we've been having with multiple commissions around a coordinated climate campaign ongoing is sort of happening alongside of this, and may very well get rolled into that implementation plan. So that kind of speaks to James's larger question of, you know, of that integration and getting the education and engagement piece really integrated into the policy piece.
Thanks, Tanya. Okay, so we have Brian, me. I think, yeah. Any other volunteers in terms of just helping to collate the points from the documents?
I would be happy to help if needed.
Okay, thanks, Larry. So, but this doesn't excuse everyone else. Everyone is responsible for reading it and giving us comments. Yes, Risa.
In order for us to meet the timeline that Stu suggested, I think it would be good for us to agree when we will have our feedback to the three of you that are going to be collating it.
End of next week, please. Brian, you're on mute.
June 4th then, Friday, June 4th. And who are we sending it to?
To Brian, Bex, and Larry.
Okay.
Please be careful when you send your emails to not mail the whole group.
You can mail the whole group once, but not reply, from what I understand.
Yeah, but you can't control when people reply or not. So,
So can we send it to 3 people? Is that okay?
yes.
Yeah, but just don't have back and forth conversations to get like a serial meeting. I think we're going to be okay with the, one person it's sending to 3, but just those 3 don't respond unless it's something, like clarifying that you don't understand something written, if that makes sense.
And then Larry, Brian, and me, we will get together and make a plan to collate.
So it will be on the agenda for the June CCOC meeting.
But it sounds like we need to get something to the CPC before then.
Is that allowed?
Is that right, Stu?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
We need to get something to the CPC before the next CCOC?
No, you just don't take all summer is all I'm saying.
Okay.
So it needs, so then I'm just suggesting it be an agenda item for the June CCOC meeting.
Perfect. Yes, please, Elizabeth. Okay.
I was gonna just, if you need a 4th, I'm happy to do it. If you're good with 3, then we're good.
Thanks, Marty.
Sure.
Okay. Great. Right. We have 21 minutes. So coordinated campaign. Tanya, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, so the different commissions that have been involved in these discussions, Climate Policy Commission, CCOC, Wildfire Safety Commission, and Transportation Commission have all seen this initial document to gauge their interest, and we've definitely got strong interest from the Climate Policy Commission, Wildfire Safety Commission, along with CCOC. So what we're doing right now is setting up the next conversation for figuring out what that system would look like so that we can get a more detailed proposal together. And as part of that, I'll be forwarding that doodle poll to Marnie and Larry. You're going to get thrown right into the fire.
You mean Brian?
Brian.
Oh, Brian, sorry. Yes, Brian and Marnie. So yes, we will that's really what the next step is, where we'll try to put some more details to it. And then your commissions, all the commissions will see it again as we continue to develop what that's actually going to look like. But we've got strong interest, and it's looking positive from my perspective.
That's great. Thanks, Tanya. Something else, I didn't receive any updates, but I think we went through it at the last meeting, the project request list. So I think, given we've had quite a full agenda this meeting, just to highlight if there's anything we need to add or update. And of course, our this will be handed over to Marnie and Brian. And if you don't feel it's useful, then change it. But it just was keeping track on all the different things we're involved in. And it might change quite considerably because some things are coming forward that will obviously take over a lot of the smaller projects like the coordinated climate campaign and alignment with CPC program of work. So we could update that with myself, Larry, Brian, and Marnie for the draft urban land use and transportation. I don't think there's any other updates. We can update the notes as well, but if anyone else has anything that they think should be added to it. Stu.
Just from a tracking perspective, it's sometimes useful to have a column for when the next update will be or what the next action is.
Okay.
Just so everybody can sort of keep track easier, especially for the projects you're not working on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's helpful. We've made up loads of time now. We can talk about 20's plenty for 18 minutes. I don't think we need 18 minutes. Does anyone have an update on 20's plenty?
I've been involved with that, and there's really, to my knowledge, I haven't seen any communication since last month on it.
Okay, so we'll take that. We'll keep that for the next meeting. Risa?
Well, I guess I wonder what was going on last month. I don't remember that we talked about it last month, so maybe. Oh.
Nothing new since the vote that we took in support of it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, are there any other items for the future agenda? Brian?
I will just like to plant a bug that there's a very active group of people who are involved in climate issues and who've taken recent climate master protector classes, who actually have an interest in nuclear energy and would like to make a presentation. I know that stirs up visceral feelings from a lot of people, but some people feel that that may be necessary given our climate catastrophe that's looming and the lack of progress otherwise. And they have sought me out about the possibility of making a presentation and in the future, maybe changing the SEEP language to include the possibility of nuclear power being in Ashland, purchased from Bonneville or whatever. But I just want you to know that we'll probably be asked for a presentation by a group for that.
Okay.
And there's a great book, if anybody's interested in reading on it, called A Bright Future.
Okay, no, that sounds good. I'd welcome a presentation. I think we should be informed from all sides. I think when you're involved in climate change sustainability, it's very easy to just focus in on one thing. And then when you focus in on one thing, you focus in on one side of one thing. And we should maintain our open minds. We're in crisis. Yeah, so I'd welcome something like that. If they want to come present, yeah.
Is there a guideline for groups like the solar cooperative presentation, or say if somebody wants to present on nuclear, to give them about, like, to prepare a 5-minute or a 10-minute, or is there kind of a guideline to tell them what to prepare for?
I'm not sure. Elizabeth?
Not a guideline. It's usually just up to the chair to kind of determine how much time based on the other agenda items. So it's completely open. We can also work around what they think they might need.
Okay, I'll leave you and Marnie to decide that then.
I will say, Brian, do you think they'll want to present at like the next meeting, or okay, just some future meeting?
I'll take it back to them and tell them if they want to do it, to start thinking about it in a couple months.
Okay, and yet once we have like a good month down, we can, if it's set in, we can help plan around the other items as well. So that will help.
And James?
Yeah, Brian, they probably have already thought of this, but in order for me to really wrap myself around it, I've thought about this for a long time myself. I would like to know if in their assessment and when they give that presentation, if they can take and compare it to our current alternatives for using renewable energy and the cost of that, the development costs of nuclear, the time it takes to get nuclear up and running and all that stuff. I think those are really important pieces to understand, because there are severe limitations on getting nuclear up and running, quickly. So anyway, if they can do that comparison to other sources of renewable energy, what ramp up time they're talking about doing this, and the risks and benefits.
Well, obviously that's a time discussion, not possible here. The issues are so huge, but I would suggest that book, A Bright Future. And if anybody would like a copy, I'd be happy to give you one. And that would, I think, be very educational, and for folks with an open mind and a scientific background, it'd be at the minimum an interesting read.
Thanks, Brian. Are there any other thoughts for future agenda items? Larry?
Yeah, I'd like to revisit something we've talked about in the past and we've not really made it work. It has to do with adding more people to our commission, and it's getting a high school student who would really want to do it engaged. I just feel like young people are sort of a real key to the future and to the hope that we might have for dealing with the climate crisis that we're in and that we will continue to be in. And, if people have any ideas about possible students, I think there's maybe a new club at Ashland High School that is focused on environment or climate. If somebody has a more direct connection with that, see if there's maybe a student who would like to be, for a little while we had a student, but I mean somebody who would commit for a year or for a school year. I think it would be very helpful to have that input from a young person.
Okay, I think we discussed this at the last meeting where there's some student positions available that I think they're in addition to the other seats available. Is that right?
I think so.
Okay, because it's definitely something I can explore. I'm just conscious that term's about to end here, but definitely something that could start in September when term starts again for SOU students. But I also think, yeah, high school students, that's a great idea too. Yeah, we need younger as well. Okay, great.
One more thing I'd like to request, and I don't know who would make this available. Rather than a PDF for us to comment in, and that's a lot of potential comments that have to be collated by those of you who are going to kind of pull those comments together. I find it much easier to provide through Word, provide my input. And when you start collating input from various a number of people, using a Word document with their comments in it make it a lot easier. So I would like to be able to use a Word document that I can make comments into.
Okay. I don't know if I have it as a Word document, but I can find that.
Yeah, I mean, even within the presentation, there's obviously a slideshow that begins the whole thing, but then there's the actual documents, the implementation plan, the draft of it. Yeah.
That's probably a Google Doc that was sent to me. I can find that in my emails. Yep.
Okay, that'd be helpful for me.
Okay, I can send that to everyone. Just don't reply all. and then just keep it and then take your comments and send them on to, or I can even then save the document. Yeah, send out the link.
Well, also, if they're in Google Docs and we edit it there, then Brian and you guys can just collate it right there. We don't have to send stuff out. It's all just in
Yeah.
place.
Exactly. Okay, let me find the Google Doc and I'll get that to everyone.
Hey, folks, I hate to be the wet towel, but we're not allowed to use online collaborative docs. That counts as a serious meeting. Hey, it's not my rule. I'm sorry. I agree. I agree. It would be far more efficient. There's nothing I can do to help you in that case. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Stu, could I just ask really quick, if there's just 3 of us in a task force, can we use our own Google Doc and then put it in a forum to share with the commission?
Elizabeth, do you have clarity on that?
I mean, we wouldn't be using any city, information system.
I think that's part of the problem, is that everything needs to be on public record.
Well,
And the main thing,
for us, it doesn't, I don't think.
we need to check on that. In the past, we've been told no, because it just opens up for potentially having, discussion through comments. Just remember, all your deliberations and discussions need to happen at public meetings. So I can check in and see if there's a way, if you guys are just putting those comments into a Google Doc. But our legal department doesn't have a lot of time for this right now. So if you guys could do some other way, that would be best.
Okay, I've just looked. I only have the document in PDF. I don't have it in Word anyway. I don't know how to do this to make it easier for everyone. I mean, I can ask Gary for the Word document, but then if I send that out and everyone sends me separate comments, is that okay? And then they're collated in one document, or can everyone just write their comments and the page number?
Yeah, it's not that complicated with Word. I mean, all that if you had a Word document sent out to each of us, we just make comments the way we want to.
So at the moment, I don't have a Word document, and I don't know if I can get a Word document. What I'm saying is I have a PDF document. So
That's what I have.
yeah, is it possible for everyone to have the page number and a comment, or is everyone asking me to get a Word document? But we need a contingency plan, because I might not necessarily be able to get a Word document.
Well, just one last comment on that. I can convert a PDF to a Word document. So you probably can too, Bex.
Yeah, I can do that, but I'd rather get it from the original source than start changing someone's document. But we could do that if that makes everyone's life easier. I don't know what we do here. Yeah, I know it's not anyone's fault here. I struggle. We can't collaboratively work on a document. It's holding us back. And when process holds outcome back, I struggle. But we need to think the best process. So, okay, James, convert it to Word and you send it to everyone. If everyone can then comment on the document and send it to Brian, myself, Larry, and Marnie.
Yeah, so send it to me. I'll convert it to Word, send it back to you, and you can pass it on, okay?
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, I know you're caught up in what we can and can't do, but this is, yeah, it's not the kind that we want to, it's not what we want to be caught up in when we have time issues. Okay, so is everyone okay with that? We're going to get a Word document to everyone to comment on and then send it to the 4 people. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to a close, but just before I do, I just want to say thank you very much to everyone for being you and for being there for the last year. It's been a really great experience being part of this, and I've enjoyed being your chair. And I also want to acknowledge Risa as vice chair was absolutely brilliant. And I enjoy working with Risa. As you all know, we work together on another project. So within the commission and out with the commission. So yeah, so I'd like to also acknowledge the support that Risa has given me as well. Thank you. And thank you all.
Thank you, Bex and
Thank
Reese.
you to both of you.
Thanks. And we'll be there to support you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.